I wrote the script for this episode about 4 weeks ago because we had intended to put the video out in February, but I got a stinking cold at the end of the month and it just put the schedule back a couple of weeks. And so today I come to record this video, and I've looked at my script that I wrote, and it talks about the winter season being symbolic of things slowing down and the cold setting in, rainy and windy, and it was a bit doom and gloom. And then going on to talk about retail and how that, it's a crazy time leading up to Christmas where there's a surge of people buying, and then you get to just after Christmas and it just stops. It's quite dramatic, the drop off, which then leads to a quiet January and February for people in retail. I've even used words like trudge. But all of that just seems a bit redundant at the minute. And I think we don't know what to do about that. So one way of dealing with it, I guess, is just to focus on your own sphere and what you're up to, and try and keep a rational head. But yeah, it's definitely, it feels a bit redundant speaking about watches, I guess. But it's our passion, it's what we get up in the morning to do, and it's what supports our families, so we just have to focus on that, I guess. Our business has been buoyed over the past 2 years with the surge into online shopping with COVID, which is still here. Scotland is opening up, and as a result of the risk of COVID reduces, so too does the shift away from online shopping, I guess, back into high streets. So yeah, I think we're going to face quite a challenging year, especially now with the situation. We really don't know how to react to these things. We've just got to do it day by day, and it's definitely going to be one of the more interesting years. Just when we thought we'd reached the kind of peak of interesting years, we realise that we haven't even scratched the surface. But yeah, Oliver and I are quite good at navigating difficult waters. So we'll do our best. But of course there's going to be delays as a result of everything that's going on, COVID included. So we are now only seeing the delays from the original COVID come to pass. So our production schedules for things like the Astro and the Scepter, 35mm, these were all projects that were meant to land last year but have been moved into this year just due to delays in production. But the projects are getting there. We're starting to get production samples now of the various projects, especially the Astro, which is going to be the first one out the gate. And they're all looking great. The Astro especially is really exciting now that you get to see the finished form and its production guys with all the correct finishes and colours and textures and printing. It's really starting to form this really quite unique watch. So I'm really excited about that. The scepter similarly is really looking good. Following on from the sole and the case design, we've brought that into the scepter, added a bi-directional bezel, so it's more of a dive watch, but it's not really a dive watch, it's more of a subsurface watch, if that's a thing. But we've also got new projects ongoing, one in particular being the Coniston, our kind of original and best affordable mechanical watch, which we've loved for the past, what is that now, 2, 3, 4 years it's been around. The movement in the Coniston, the 8N33, was discontinued a year ago. It was announced that they would no longer make this movement, and so we took preemptive steps to try and gather in as many of these movements as possible so that we could continue the Coniston as long as possible. But we've exhausted that resource now, so the decision was, do we discontinue the Coniston, which we really didn't want to do, or do we try and adapt it to a new movement? And the only movement that we could do that with is an automatic. It's called the 8N24, which is basically visually the 8N33 but with a rotor. So aesthetically it does continue the same looks as the Coniston, but it's a lot thicker than the manual winding movement. So we went through a bit of a phase of trying to adapt the original Coniston design, the case design, to this new movement. We tried to put a case back on that was that accommodated this additional thickness, but it looked horrific. So we took the opportunity to go right back to the drawing board and redesign the Coniston to harness this new movement, and the results have been brilliant. I think for me the Coniston, when I look at it now, having gone through this process, you can see how much more refined this new iteration is. The case is completely different, and it kind of recognises the distance that I've travelled as a designer since that original Coniston, and it just looks a bit more grown up, which is funny to say for a watch, but it does have that more refined look to it. For the future pipeline, this year, 23 and 24, we've got 3 or 4 new designs already in pre-production, and all of them are really exciting. They look so much more refined, especially in the case design department. I think the Pacific was a line in the sand for me in terms of case design and what we can achieve, and how best to utilise that form for comfort on the wrist and wrist presence, and making a case interesting from all angles. And the pipeline leading into the future does embrace that new learning, and it's looking really good. We've got a couple of things we can't talk about because of early release things. But yeah, it's looking really great. I'm just looking down my script still, and it talks a lot about the struggles of design and my struggles with imposter syndrome, or the sophomore album and things like that, and it's not really that much of a hardship to design watches. I think for me, my struggles are more mental. I have a lot of worry about being able to follow up things like the Coniston and offer new exciting designs like the Astro and the Coniston automatic. But yeah, it's not really that much of a struggle really, sitting in this nice design office on a computer designing watches. But I can say that I'm really excited about what is being produced, and there is an interesting arc to what we do, in that you fall in love with this design that you've toiled over, and got to a point where you hand it over to the manufacturer, and you think it's the best iteration and you're really pleased with it, and then you hand it over and there's a 9-month gap between then and when I next see it, when all of us see it. And in that 9 months, you learn a whole raft of new things, so that when that design comes back into your consciousness, you immediately see things that you could improve, or I would maybe do that a wee bit different, or I wish I hadn't designed it like that. So it is this strange 9-month arc between each project where you fall in love with it and then you forget about it, and then you see how you could improve it. But yeah, it's quite an interesting thing. It's definitely good for the learning, you know, being able to hand off a project and then forget about it, and then come back to it afresh in its final form, you know, the form that you guys see it in. But yeah, we're getting there. Production is trucking away. Hopefully we won't have many more delays, but that's to be seen. We have so many new friends joining us with their first Marloe, and coming into our world and seeing what we do, and enjoying the fact that we put quality above all else, and really embracing our ethos of how we do things. Pretty soon we're about to launch a realignment of our brand in terms of messaging, and last year in January we started a branding exercise where we talked about what was meaningful to us, and what we want to do and what we want to be, and that is only now solidified. So we're at a point now where we're going to start rolling that out, and that is exciting also, because it really does speak about what we want Marloe to be and how we want to be communicating to you guys, and generally about how we spend our time, and are we using it to the best of our ability. So yeah, we've got that to look forward to, and then, you know, we're only in March, so we've got another 9 months to enjoy and to tackle and to discuss and weave our way through, and it's going to be exciting, but it's also going to be very challenging, and we hope that everyone stays safe, and we hope that we can get through. So thanks to everyone who has supported us so far. We really appreciate all your messages and phone calls and notes of support and resonance about what we're doing here, and we really appreciate it. It keeps us going. If you want to stay in the loop, just sign up to our newsletter on the website, where we send out weekly emails just to keep you on top of what we're up to, and some articles that Stephanie's writing and I'm writing, and bits and bobs. We try not to spam you too much, but we keep a kind of consistent communication going. So yeah, do that, and it'll not be long before the next video's out. It's going to be an interesting year, that's for sure.